Trump's tariffs on China are the best thing to ever happen to America. They are the absolute worst thing ever. In the 1980s, the US was the global manufacturing superpower, manufacturing over 30% of the world's goods, and China at that time only manufactured 3% of the world's goods. Since then, and specifically with the addition of China to the World Trade Organization, we have largely closed our factories and shipped our manufacturing capabilities overseas. Today, the US accounts for about 17% of the world's manufacturing, while China now leads the world at 30%. We handed them the baton for manufacturing, which comes with extreme risk. Over 80% of the active pharmaceutical ingredients Americans take to survive are made in China. We get over 80% of our rare earth metals from China and over 80% of our solar panels from China, and these are just a few of thousands of examples of how us Americans are completely dependent on Chinese-made goods to survive. And must I remind you, China is considered a foreign adversary to the US. Okay, yes, it is no surprise that free trade has led to us offshoring a lot of manufacturing jobs, but the US hasn't gone broke. In fact, the US GDP is still the largest in the world at 29 trillion compared to China's being 19 trillion. Also, the median wage earner in America earns about $60,000 a year, while it's $16,000 a year in China, and the unemployment rate in America is 4.1%, while it's 5.4% in China. So yes, they've taken over more manufacturing responsibility, but still, on basically all financial metrics, the US still beats China. This is because we have shifted our workforce from manufacturing to more dignified work in the service industry. Okay, but since we allowed for this offshoring, American companies have been able to increase profits while cutting the amount they spend on American workers. This has increased wage inequality greatly, with CEO pay soaring over 1,200% from the 1980s to today, compared to a 15.3% rise in typical workers' pay for the same period. The rich got richer in America faster than regular Americans on the backs of slave labor in China. This cheap labor has allowed prices to stay affordable for the average American. The reason American companies choose to offshore factories is because it is cheaper to do so. The average manufacturing worker in China makes $3 an hour, while it's $35 an hour here. This is why we build our cheap things there, because their workers are cheaper. Since our workers are more expensive, we do the more expensive tasks here. What it's really done is hollowed out the middle class and made us live in a world where you are either very rich, or to survive, you must work a job to serve those who are very rich. This doesn't seem like a good world we live in. I think the average middle class American has a much better standard of living than the average person living in China. I'm not saying I'd rather be Chinese, I just rather live in a world where American companies have to build their products in America, or else they're charged a high price to do business in the US, called the tax, in order to pay foreign workers over American workers. Sounds fair to me. Yeah, sounds fair until you realize it's 10 times more expensive to build things in America, and you go to the grocery store and all the furniture and sporting equipment and everything else China builds today is 10 times more expensive, which would disproportionately affect poor Americans more than rich Americans, because poor Americans have to spend a higher percentage of their income to survive. So sure, there may be a higher availability of middle-class jobs, even though we don't currently have an employment problem, but that will come at the cost of higher costs. It is also true that factories are changing. Robotics and AI are coming. You no longer need thousands of low-wage workers to put pieces of wood together to make furniture. Robots will do a lot of that work, which will reduce China's cheap labor advantage and allow American manufacturing to soar and be cost competitive. Tariffs will push this outcome to happen. Well, if these factories aren't hiring humans, why do you want them? There will still be a need for humans to repair the robots and monitor them and operate them and to physically build the factories themselves. We want these modern factories to be built in America. You can't just do it by snapping a finger with tariffs. If it truly makes America competitive with China, it will happen naturally. It'll take a little push to make it happen, and that's what these tariffs do.